Hello, listeners. Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network, and I want to take just a quick moment to tell you about another show on our podcast network designed specifically for all the education technology enthusiasts out there. The Higher Ed Geek podcast is a deep dive into the world of educational technology and its transformative impact on the student experience. Geek out each week with host Dustin Ramsdell. His conversations are a mix of engaging storytelling, expert analysis, and a genuine passion for all things higher ed and tech. Whether you're an educator or an administrator or just someone passionate about the intersection of technology and education, this podcast promises to deliver content that's both enlightening and entertaining. You can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or by searching the Higher Ed Geek wherever you get your podcasts.
No, that's kind of the trick too, right? Is like getting these AI models to not just make stuff up, right? They've got a lot of great general knowledge, but especially in the higher ed context, when accuracy is paramount, we need to make sure that our generative AI tools are not just inventing information, that they're drawing it from legit sources and that it's current, up to date, the right information that they need. So yeah, a lot of like information architecture work to go into that to make sure that everything's ready to be augmented. But once you can get that, then that generative AI unlocks scale.
Yes.
Right. We can unlock scale for everybody to come and have these conversations that are highly accurate and on demand.
And when you were just saying that, I was thinking unlocking, like have somebody be able to chat with a bot about their financial aid package. And there's that whole personalization / privacy issue you have to cross there, which is a conversation everybody's having as well. Like, where is that line for us and why?
Welcome to the EduData Podcast, a podcast that serves as your weekly guide to the data driving higher education. We are your hosts. I'm Jamie Boggs.
And I'm Timothy Davis. Join us every Friday for weekly breakdowns of the most important data, trends, and topics in higher education.
The EduData Podcast is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below.
Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the EduData Podcast. I'm Timothy Davis, here as always with Jamie Boggs. Hello, Jamie.
Hey, Timothy. Like to hear the new mic, the sultry sound of your voice. Sounds moving up.
We're coming up in the world. You know, we finally kind of upgraded the old computer mic situation. Now we got a little bit more professional get up here. So hopefully that improved sound quality is appreciated.
Yeah. I think most people usually do. I don't think it sounded bad before, but it's always good to look for little improvements, which is why our team recently went to a web conference.
Oh my gosh, you are a professional podcaster.
That's my favorite segue.
Amazing transition. Wow. I did not see that. You got me with that one.
Got him.
Well done.
Yeah. So we went to the Higher Ed Analytics Conference recently.
Yeah. I think it was they billed it the AI and Analytics Summit.
Yes. And by went to, I mean virtually attended. So today we really kind of want to break that down. Like what were some takeaways of there? Because I mean, it's a super important field, but I think it's still, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, like just a narrow, like analytics is a part of most higher ed institutions and most offices, but as a specialization, it's still growing pretty quickly.
For sure. And the HighEdWeb conference is focused on mainly like marketing professionals or even more niche like digital ad buying professionals in the higher ed space, as well as like web admins, formerly known as webmasters.
Yes.
If you've still got a webmaster at your EDU email, Bless up. That's amazing. I hope you are still have that thing in circulation, because
Don't let them ever change your job title.
don't let 'em
Master is
do
better
it.
than admin every single time.
Oh my God, what an amazing title. Okay, well, yeah, so we have a couple of takeaways from that. I kind of lean towards more of the analytics side of the tracks. You were more in the AI and in the partner
Right.
tracks.
Yeah, there were a few different tracks, and our team tried to evenly divide up what we were going to. So I did hit quite a few AI sessions, and then just how to work with other departments and outside partners. So I really came away with a couple themes I would like to share here. But why don't you go ahead and
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do like top five themes from
Let's go.
HighEdWeb. So yeah, I mean, this is one that's really nitty and gritty, but there were like 5 or 6 sessions that were just about Google Analytics 4, GA4. It has been trying times since the forced migration from the previous version of Google Analytics called Universal Analytics to the new GA4 platform. And, I mean, a lot of higher ed practitioners are using Google Analytics in their analytics and reporting schemes. Basically, it's a website tracker. It allows you to see activities of anonymous users on your web pages, and from that, you can make decisions about your content. You can make decisions about the refers or advertisers that you're placing, and just kind of get a better picture of how people are interacting with your website. And it's a free tool. And for offices that have a budget of free, it's just been a match made in heaven. And so a lot of folks got used to using Universal Analytics, the previous version of Google Analytics. But in 2023, they started forcing the migration from Universal Analytics to the new GA4 version. And that's been tough for a lot of reasons. One, like they gave about a year, which sounds, like a reasonable amount of time, but like at least in the world of higher ed was not
at all.
So fast comparably to the required turnaround based on how much had been built on Universal Analytics. And it also changed sort of the framing, I guess we could say the data model of how data is collected and reported. Universal Analytics used a sort of abstraction model called the session, which is a grouping of page views and link clicks and all related to a single session on the site, a single visit to the site, where Google Analytics 4 is solely event-driven. So you've got page views, you've got started session events, you've got linked-clicked events, but that model into a session no longer exists. And so that shift in thinking about the data model has been a jump for some folks as they try to adjust their reporting that they do. But there's hope. People are coming around to it, for the differences that GA4 has brought. It's also brought some new possibilities for integrations and just for thinking about our website analytics a little bit differently.
And for anybody that may not be familiar, this wasn't just a software upgrade. This wasn't going from iOS 13 to 14. This was, we're going to throw away what we have and we're going to create something with a similar outcome, but it's going to be complete. It's a different system entirely. The interface, like you said, the data model, what it tracks, how it tracks it, and how users have to interact to. If you want it the same way you had it before, it's a completely different process to track similar things. So huge jump, and it was refreshing for me to see that. I've been out of marketing for a few years now, so don't look at GA4, Google Analytics, as much as I used to. So in my mind, the deprecation of Universal, I don't know, it didn't really impact me as much as it would have, but man, it's got to be huge for so many people. So those conversations, I imagine, are going to keep going for a few more years.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's more work to do for sure as universities transition away from Universal Analytics onto GA4.
Yeah, so that's a good lead into my first takeaway, and that's really what I found in the AI space in these sessions. A lot of them were case studies from companies or institutions or best practices or how did we do this thing, which I think is why most people go to conferences. I want to do this thing. I want to hear how somebody else did it and did it well and steal their ideas, which is awesome. But what I heard a lot of is not let's do all these new things. It was how to take AI and incorporate it into what you're already using. Because we need to rethink the way we're doing SEO now. It's going to be much more conversational. It's going to be just the way we approach search engine optimization, optimizing program pages or home pages or whatever has to change with AI. And that's, if you're trying to get your chat bot up and running, maybe you're not thinking about, we have to go back and optimize the pages, because that's probably two completely different departments, right? And it goes to GA4 as well. How can we track these AI interactions or the responses people are getting through our AI differently? Your CRM, your CMS, and then a huge piece of this obviously is personalization. It's not just dropping. We've mentioned this before. It's no longer just dropping a first name token in somewhere. It's like, hey, Steve, I noticed you were just looking at this page over there. Let me answer some questions about that and guide you over to this page as well. Like the personalization piece, just so much of going back to how have we done things. Now that we have this tool, we don't have to change everything, but we have to update everything. You can't just move ahead with AI in one direction and leave everything else behind. So that was a big thing that I found in every AI session. It was almost, all right, let's go back to Google Search Console. Let's go back to whatever CMS you use, and how do you implement it with those in particular. So a lot of let's get everything caught up before we continue to move forward, I think was a theme.
Kind of a ducks in order, sort of like don't move into this new space without, don't move into the new ocean of AI without first having your ship built.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, that's the rub, right? Like you have to keep up, but how do I keep up without leaving things behind? And we need to go back and get those things we've left behind and bring them up to speed too.
Absolutely. Did you see any cool like AI use cases? What's that first step that people are looking at as they sort of wade into all these new generative AI capabilities?
Yeah, I think that a lot of what people have focused on up until now is obviously prompt engineering, how to get your website or your CRM to interact and answer questions correctly. And I think the next step moving forward to that was there's a one resource that was shared was Mind Studio, which is much more interactive. I mean, imagine combining some other tools like Zapier with ChatGPT, which you can connect those together. But this is a space where not only is it generating content, but it's able to access resources from a bunch of different places to do so. So it makes it easier to use AI to tap into separate resources. So less streamlined. Here's our data bank. Here's our interface. This is what AI looks like with these prompts. And now it's, here are all of our sources. Here's how it's going to come together and be dispersed to users.
That's really cool. So yeah, basically like partitioning out information and making sure it's collected and ready to go to augment a generative AI response with up-to-date information.
Absolutely.
Very
That
cool.
sounded much smarter than I put it. That's great.
No, no, that's kind of the trick too, right? Is like getting these AI models to not just make stuff up, right? They've got a lot of great general knowledge, but especially in the higher ed context, when accuracy is paramount, we need to make sure that our generative AI tools are not just inventing information, that they're drawing it from legit sources, and that it's current, up to date, the right information that they need. So yeah, a lot of like information architecture
Very
work
much.
to go into that to make sure that everything's ready to be augmented. But once you can get that, then that generative AI unlocks scale.
Yes.
Right. We can unlock scale for everybody to come and have these conversations that are highly accurate and on demand.
When you were just saying that, I was thinking unlocking, like have somebody be able to chat with a bot about their financial aid package. And there's that whole personalization / privacy issue you have to cross there, which is a conversation everybody's having as well. Like, where is that line for us and why?
Absolutely.
Hey, it's Mallory. Exciting news! I'm hosting the Engage Summit in Raleigh on June 25th and 26th, and I'd love to meet you there. Together, we'll dive into the mind of the modern student. what fires them up, how they interact, and what they expect in today's digital age, and how tools like AI help put them in the driver's seat of their education. We have some terrific speakers, including our closing keynote, New York Times best-selling author Jeff Salingo. Sessions will dig into practical ideas and innovative strategies to get your team more student-centered and ready to adopt AI. And many of your favorite Enrollify hosts are presenting too, like Jamie Hunt, Jenny Lee Fowler, and Brian Gross. Use the discount code Enrollify50 for an extra $50 off your registration. Learn more and register at engage.element451.com. We can't wait to see you there.
Well, also in the privacy space, another thing that folks are looking at is the deployment of tracking and analytics scripts or cookies with the consent of the user.
Love cookies.
Those chocolate chip cookies, they just keep putting them on my Chrome browser, and I just go back
accept
into the
every
dev tools.
cookie
Ow,
ever.
give me those things. If only. Oh my gosh.
Right?
Well, basically, over the last couple of years, technology platforms like Apple, as well as governance bodies like the EU and the state of California, have enforced more strict privacy regulations on how browsers and tracking scripts collect information about users, how they're allowed to share that information. And one of the big takeaways from that new body of legislation has been the requirement to ask users what scripts or cookies or tracking they will allow.
Yeah.
So a lot of like the Safari browser on iPhone now has a lot of that built in and turned on by default. Of course, you've seen those new pop-ups on websites that say, what cookies will you allow? Will you allow functional cookies, functional scripts, analytics, advertising? What will you allow? And then you have the ability to confirm your choices, etc. Higher ed, if you'll notice, on most institutional websites have not implemented that. And for many, it's not technically a legal requirement yet, but it is absolutely the state of the art. And so there were a lot of sessions about implementing that sort of consent protocol through the tools that you're using. And of course, most of those are related to Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager. So we saw a session about about consent mode. We saw a session about the new server-side Tag Manager container that Google has come out with in the past couple of years. But basically, just a lot more attention on making sure that we are in compliance with that new best practice and ensuring that users have the most control over what data is collected about them. And while that is difficult for marketers, we're seeing a decrease in maybe the page view volume. We're seeing more challenges related to advertising attribution, things like that. While that certainly comes with challenges, I think it's ultimately a very good thing for us to move to this new best practice because it puts those users, those students, first.
Absolutely, and privacy is definitely gaining momentum. That's not something I think we're going to walk back. So if you're not moving in that direction, then you're going to have to scramble at some point or be left out in the cold. So, yeah, that's super important. Like you said, there are some things you're not going to be able to capture, and sometimes that's going to be just users won't show up. But how can we reframe the way that we look at the data or scale it or look at it proportionately to make data-driven decisions? And some of that may be how many people came to the site and didn't let us have their information or what have you. And for those, how can we track other activities without knowing exactly who they are? So, and yeah, that's several sessions I went to of tools that you can use to track behavior without looking at that PII or the other trackable data and that kind of thing. So tools like Microsoft Clarity and some others that track, really you can watch videos of people that are interacting with the site, which is, again, another, like it's kind of eerie to watch, but it's like, dude, why are you clicking on this 10 times? You got a twitch or something? Like it's interesting to watch. Or is your mouse broken? I don't know what's happening.
Right.
But there are a lot of tools out there that are starting to grow in popularity for that reason as well.
For sure.
And I think that even more so adds to the importance of capturing the right information. And some sessions that I went to talked about sharing it with senior leadership, or using it to make those data-driven decisions. Even though we're more valuing privacy at a higher level, we also have access to infinitely more data, just generally than we used to. So, what's important? If I'm going to go give a presentation to the vice president of enrollment at my institution, does he need to know how many impressions this TikTok had? Or am I just saying, this is how much we spent on TikTok, these are the number of leads we had from it, and these are the number of leads that went on to be applications, and these enrolled? Like, what are those metrics that are super important now? Because I can show 5 billion impressions, and that looks awesome on paper, but if there's no meat to it, then they're not going to care. Unless you can show that ROI, return on investment, it's not going to be as big of an impact. So people are having those conversations of how do we, in addition to everything we've talked about here, like how do we track these things? Now that we're tracking stuff, what's important and what's important to different stakeholders?
Absolutely. Yeah. Picking the best metrics. Was there kind of a recommendation made in a session that you attended?
So yeah, the one that talked about senior leadership specifically was very marketing heavy. So it was very monetarily focused of cost per lead, cost per application, cost per enrollee, and then getting eventually to that lifetime return on a student, which is a tricky metric to get to anyway, depending on your institution. But yeah, tying it all to costs. So that's a lot of times the marketing focus, and sometimes for your leaders need to hear that and then change over time. Have we cut our costs by 20% per lead? Are our leads converting to applications at a higher or lower percentage? So I think the monetary side's going to win out on the marketing area. But if you're just talking enrollment, I think you're looking just more at hard numbers and then growth, and whether you're explaining, like I try to be able to back it. That's why it's data driven, right? Like we had a 20% increase in applications this year. It's because of these efforts, or we had a 10% reduction. This may be the cause, and these are the changes we're making. So be able to defend the numbers, I think, was the main takeaway, and just knowing your audience, really, because there are lots of different audiences we have to cater to.
Well, I'm encouraged to hear that there was some talk about doing like cost analysis, right, related to your marketing and admissions efforts, because my last takeaway was actually going to be that on the whole, higher ed website analytics continues to remain in much of a silo. Right, it is typically its own discipline with its own data collection and data storage and data reporting processes that do not fit into any sort of larger scheme happening around the institution as a whole. And I think that obviously that did not just develop by accident. We've seen a lot of marketing offices or website offices just gravitate to these free tools and start using them and taking as much advantage of them as possible. But the reporting tends to end at conversions like RFI form submissions or application starts, right? Once from my perspective as a marketer or as a website admin, once I've got, the student to that conversion point, I'm hands off, it's gone to the next office, whatever, and I'm focused on like those sort of demand generation numbers. And I think the next step for institutions and website analytics has got to be centralization with other data, right? Most of those shops are if they're using a data warehouse at all, it's their own one that they've spun up, usually BigQuery, because they're in the Google ecosystem, right? But there's no cross-coordination or very minimal cross-coordination with other offices like enrollment, like grad studies or the graduate enrollment offices, like institutional research. There's no cross between. That silo is still very much real.
Absolutely. And I think being able to get that whole funnel together, or at least to get people together that are interested in different pieces to put it together, I think is going to help everybody do their job a little better and to know what numbers to look for. But this was it was a good time for us to engage in a training like this. I think as things are moving so quickly, I think professional development is going to be so important moving forward. So glad we got to do this. Recommend others to get involved. You can still go to HighEdWeb and find some of the sessions. I think you may have to pay for some others, but there are a lot of good resources out there.
Yeah, some of them are still on demand is my understanding, and we can link to that in the show. But yeah, definitely go to these conferences. Go to these professional development conferences. Get a feel for what's going on in the industry, and continue to level up your own skills.
You can use the word steal. You can use the word share, but they're just ideas, and we're all trying to get better, right? So take some time this week, share our podcast with somebody you care about in the industry, and show your love that way. And until next time, this has been Timothy Davis and Jamie Boggs for the EduData Podcast.
The EduData Podcast is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like the other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month. We've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional.
Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Artis Cadu, Dustin Ramsdale, Jeremy Tiers, and so many of your other favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.